y'all, welcome back. We're here to work on our power switch today. We had a couple of options here. One was this little $2 switch that's just your basic on-off switch. This is a Gardner Bender GSW-125, and it's a short ball toggle switch with wire leads on it. And nothing wrong with one of these little switches. You could either put it on the front like this, but given we're going with this gold trim, I'm just not sure that really looks great with that. And so the other option would be to put it in this back corner, back by the power plug, which I have done on some other amps, and it does keep all of the 110, 120 volt AC back in this corner. And all it takes is drill one little hole, you run one wire over to the IEC socket, one over to the other lead goes to the transformer with some heat shrink tape, and you're done. So that's a lot simpler than what we're going to do here. We're going to mount this little angel eye latching. It clicks on, clicks off. It's got an amber LED indicator around it. It's going to be mounted up here on the front, and they look really nice. I used this same switch on my personal 6SQ7 amp. I used it on the 6BM8, and I'm going to show you in detail about how to mount one of these on the front and wire it all up. So we are going to first go over here to the other side of the chassis, and we want to make this symmetrical. So we're going to come in 30 millimeters from the edge to mark our hole, which will be right there. And then we know this is a 2-inch chassis, and so we're going to come in 1 inch from, it's 1 millimeter. We're going to come in 1 inch from the top and 1 inch. We're going to measure it again. 1 inch from the bottom. It's right there is where our hole's going to be. So again, we're going to use our little automatic center punch since we don't have a good way of really supporting the back of it. And I think we were able to make enough of a mark there. On aluminum, these work great. On steel, they really don't put much of a dimple in it, but it's probably going to be enough to get the drill started without it walking. So let's see how we do here. Really try to get it in that little dimple and go real slow. Okay, now I want to come back and just make double sure we got it in the right place. That's 1 inch, that's 1 inch, and that's 30 millimeters. So we're going to drill through here. First, make sure there's nothing on the back side we could drill through, which I don't think there is. Okay, got our pilot hole drilled. And we drill next size hole. Then we got one more to drill because we're going to be using one of our chassis punches, the same one that we use for 9-pin sockets. We're going to be using to drill the hole for this switch. It's just under 19 millimeters, but we need a 3/8 inch hole to put the draw bolt through. Like that, and I think that's perfect. I was going to say, I think we might have to wobble it around a little bit, but we don't. And once again, we want to get a piece of paper, Make sure we don't have any metal shards there. Get our piece of paper to protect the top. And I'm going to put our through bolt through and get ready to punch our hole. When you're getting close to being snug, I wiggle around a little bit to make sure everything's all centered. And then get a wrench. And this one has 3 cutting points on it. And there's 1, 2, 3 clicks. And here's our hole. And it just won't go through because this cutter we have is a, let me look at this to get the exact number off of it, is a 18.6 millimeters, and this needs to be a 19 millimeter hole. But the other thing, and let me zoom in here so I can show you this, there's a little rubber O-ring that goes behind here that we're going to be using to make sure this thing doesn't rotate once it's installed. And to accommodate that, there needs to be a bevel on the edge of this hole for the O-ring to sit in. So we're going to get our friend the file and go around this hole, putting a bevel on it. At the same time, it'll open this hole up just enough for the switch to go through. And again, you could probably use a hole saw to do this. I just happen to have a punch that's this exact size that works perfect for this, that I use for 9-pin tube sockets, so we use that instead. Again, the purpose of this bevel is for when you tighten this up, it gives a space for the O-ring to squeeze into. And might have to open this up just a little bit. And some of you may be brave enough to do this with a Dremel tool. I prefer doing it by hand to make sure it doesn't get out of control. Here we go. And when you're finished, you want it to look just like that, with a nice little bevel around the edge of it. And I am going to come back and put some black paint on this, but for now, I'm just going to keep going and get this video done. Okay, when we look at the back of the switch, it's got 3 terminals that are the power switch. There's the common, the center one's normally open, and that one's normally closed. And we want to use these 2 on this end because we want the switch to be open when the button is released. And then on these other 2 pins, it's probably kind of hard to see, but this is the negative for the LED, and this one's the positive. And so we're going to run a couple of real small gauge, stranded gauge wire to these 2 LED pins. The other thing I do is I bend these 3 pins over with my jeweler's pliers just a little bit to put some distance between this pin and these pins, and it makes it a little easier to solder the wires that we're fixing to solder onto this. So at this point we put our switch in like that, and that's the way it's going to look. I think that looks real classy. So now we've got to run. Let me reposition all my camera stuff and refocus everything. Okay, so now we got to run wires from here around this edge and all the way back in the back where the transformer is. And we want to do that with twisted wires like we used over here for the heater to make sure that we don't have introduce any hum into the amplifier. So we've got plenty of this wire left over from when we wound these up for the heaters. We're going to run one like this. We'll probably twist this a little bit in the chassis like that. We're going to run one from the switch up here to the corner. Let's go ahead and bend that. We want it to sit up in here like this. And then it's going to come back here to the back. The other thing we need to watch out for is we are going to be putting a bottom cover on this amp. And so I don't want this wire being anywhere near where these screws come through. So on this edge it's going to be it's not a problem. But back here in the back, there is a screw hole right here. So we want to stop. We want to have that end about right there and then come over here to the power connector. So it really just depends on how you want to do it, which end you want to start on first. I would do the switch first. We can go ahead and cut that off about right there because we know that's going to be plenty for this back edge. Get that snipped off. And go back here and work on this front part. So we know we're going to be connecting to these first two pins here. So we'll go ahead and unwind this. I think about right there is a good spot on this yellow wire. And this is AC, so it doesn't matter which one goes to which pin. And let's see if we cut that. Looks like we got that just right. I'm going to strip this off. Actually, I'm gonna strip off just a breath more of that. We got plenty of room there. I don't know why I keep picking those up. Bend that over. And that'll go right into there like that. And it actually makes sense to go ahead and solder. Well, no, let me go ahead and make this other one. Probably gonna loop it over like that. And since we know that one's gonna go there, cut that one right there. Strip this one back. Bend that down. And just kind of work that until you get it where it fits on those two. And those will just go just like that. Connect those two pins right there, and those will be our on-off. Okay, so we're getting ready to wire up this switch. One of the things that I want to go ahead and do is I want to run the wire that's going to go over to the small rectifier, and it's going to run from up here in the front around like this, come around and over here. And honestly, because this is DC, we could run it around this way. Don't see any reason not to. So instead of running it around the world, we'll just run it across like this. So let's go ahead and I'm going to add a little extra length to these. And we want one positive and then one negative. We'll just cut both of these the same length. And I'm going to go ahead and solder the negative onto the bottom, and these are just 22 gauge stranded wire, because they're obviously going to have almost no current going through them, given all they're doing is powering up this little LED. Hook it over and bend it like that. Solder this little guy in place. And just like that. Got our ground wire connected. And then I'm going to go ahead and run this wire through. Get our switch put in. And let's go ahead and run our nut down. And bolt the switch in place. I'm going to turn it just a little bit at an angle like that. Come in here with our adjustable wrench and just like that. You don't need to get that nut insanely tight, but just get it nice and snug. Just like that. That one needs a little bit of tweak down just a little bit. There we go. So we're going to solder these two wires on. And the housing of the switch is plastic, so you don't want to like just bake these terminals. You want to solder this pretty quickly. Just like that. Okay, now obviously those wires are going to sit up in there like that on their own. This negative is going to come down and across it over here, and we'll probably along the route we'll put little dots of contact cement to hold this wire down once we're all finished. We want to strip this other wire off, run it through and bend it over like that, and then solder it in place. There we go. And those can run over here. Those will run over there to the rectifier. So I hope you're enjoying the channel. If you are, please subscribe. Please like the video. And we'll see you soon for more 6SQ7 fun. Have a great day.